verify that all the buttons are working. I think all the buttons are working. Hello, everyone, and welcome to uh, my very much long delayed debut stream. There's going to be a lot of new stuff, a lot of stuff that some of you are going to be familiar with. Of course, the cat cams are preserved. You can see Sammy snoozing over there. Hey there, son. Just in time to join us. Let's see here. Of course the cat cams are preserved. They have to be preserved, Tess. For those that are new, and even for those returning, I am Newt Mechanist. And as I mentioned, today is going to be our much delayed debut stream. Normally this kind of thing happens as someone is starting streaming, especially as a VTuber. But I was not aware of that when I got started just PNG tubing. And then I got that converted into a rudimentary VTuber, and it has snowballed since that. But I want to do this. I think it's an experience that we're all going to get to share. That's why. Let's see. Does this work? This should totally work, right? Well, that's not working how I wanted it to, but oh well. Oh, of course there's going to be some scuff. There's always going to be some scuff with how we operate here. So we're going to switch over to this one. We have the full cat cam. We've got our little chat going there. Now, before we get into the traditional introduction, I do really need to show off this character model that we've got here. And we're going to start with that. So we're gonna do the classic what I believe is the classic feet to head here, just the slow burn. Thanks, Lunar. I will get into where some of this came from. The intro screen that you may have already seen is something that I made a bit custom. There are a couple of other things that are custom, and I hope you all enjoy them. But with that said, we're gonna start our reveal here. So we're gonna start with the boots because I really like the big chunky boots. You can see a bit of the tail there, too. Oh, look at that. We've got some nice hard angle plate stompy boots. Actually, maybe it's really easy to make a dynamic background. Here. There we go. That is a tail plug, son. I'm gonna call it a power cable tail there for potentially obvious reasons, though. So those are the boots. We're gonna switch over here, get another little aspect. Hey there, Hungry. We have fully functional hands. We still have our little LED sensor pads to get our little our robotic toe beams in, or little finger beans in this case. You can actually see some of the Nano cables there in the digit joints. Little purple and blue cables to flow the Nano through the body. Hey there, Flexi. We're just getting started with the character model. That's right, Lunar. The base Catbot did have them as well, but we pretty much never showed the bottom half. That's not a cape. We'll see what that is in a moment, Hungry. It's also not the hair. You never know when you're going to need very strong knuckle protection. Task. All right, let's see here. Here's the torso. We can see the body is a little bit scuffed in places. For those of you that were following the lore, there's probably some reasons for that. You can see they're almost like little ball joints in some of the spots. And we have the beating heart that is now part of my starting screen. You can see the larger nano cables in there that are the core fuel point, as well as the internal metal skeleton there underneath the exoskeleton. And you can see that the casing on that front panel is a little bit broken there. But here's another thing that we can do. It's if you look, you can see that some of the interior is also exposed. Yeah, normally the exposure of what would be the sternum area would be a problem if the armored glass and the kind of decorative plating over that weren't removed, but such is life. You had asked what the cloth was, and that is the remnants of a lab coat, legitimately and consensually obtained. Definitely a gift from the prior head of research, who has retired from the Catbot factory of their own accord. It is very similar, Lunar. So let's... That's right. There are no stains on the coat, and those burns were obtained in the course of regular laboratory work. We're gonna move here to get the last of it. And there we go. There is the head of the model. Oh, hey, Fook. Long time no see. Really glad that you could join us today. Couple of things. You can see that the top of the lab coat. Got a nice high collar there. The the hair elements are kind of like fiber optics. You can see that it's base of white, but towards the tips, it goes to that nice neon blue. The ears are the nice plated metal, and you can see the little speakers, the little receivers inside the ear. Now, let's see here. Look, the ears twitch when he blinks. Then a couple of things we can do here. We can smirk a little. Let's see here. I did show some pictures of my of the buttons that I used for this. And tilt the ears up. You look when I widen my eyes. Watch the irises. Then sad face. Then coloration wise, you guys might recognize what this refers to. And then we've always had the left eye is a little twitchy, not too surprising. You can see a little bit of damage under that eye. But we had the little sleep mode on them, and we still have that. I've actually been sitting on this for a little bit, waiting on all this stuff to get done. Part of what I was waiting for, you can hear the music in the background. Turn that up a little bit if you can. We've got our little theme song going now. Might be a little bit more apparent when I'm looking at chat. I do enjoy it. It's got a nice loop, a little bit of a beat, and two little tones to it. Two little feels, which is always good. But yeah, this is our new character model. Oop. Yeah, here. You gotta appreciate big stompy boots, son. Big stompy boots. The best kind of boots. Let's see. What else do we have that we can show here? Full body tracking. Oof. Well, there has been at least development done as far as hand tracking on a 2D VTuber, but it's probably going to be a good while before we would be looking at a 3D model. There is always the risk of that, Hungry. There's always the risk of Rule 34 creeping up on you. One of the specifications for building this was as genderless looking as possible. That is why the metal plate shorts, you know? But I think that is a internet inescapability, you know? Just can't avoid it. Oh, good times, good times. Pop back over here. We can show one of our basic scenes. Boop. That is our other transition. We've still got our little cat photos. We've got a lot of the kitties visible right now. Looks like Sherbet is napping on the bed. Sammy's still napping on the shelf. Rorschach tanked out across the desk. Weasley getting maximum head scratches. And Sky up there in the upper left. Now you may have seen it. There's another transition that I made between our scenes here. Is this working yet? I wonder. What? How do you know work? Oh. Oop. There we go. There we go. Actually made a chat screen, but we've got that nice little blur in, blur out. And if you weren't here when the start changed, so here's the starting screen. Then let's see here, we have our Be Right Back screen. And the end screen, of course, we'll see that later. For those of you that saw the first lore animation during that, might need to tweak a little bit of stuff, but still. For those of you that saw the first lore animation, the shift from the start screen or the kind of bumper screens to anything else is based off of that. If you did miss the Twitter chain that was the lore feed, there is a thread on it in the, I think it's in the announcements channel on the Discord. So you can still see it there, as well as all of the related videos. But yeah. Let's see here. So in true debut fashion here, get ourselves over to this. I've been quite busy. The framework that you're seeing here for the screens, the big screen, the cat cam, that kind of stuff is a overlay that I had made for me. Same with the 3x3 cat cams. And then I've used it in some of the other stuff. And those transitions were made custom for this stuff. I rigged those up afterwards. That's right, Fook. With this character model, while I love the retro look, we needed to update. But let's switch on over. Behold my amazing HTML skills. That's right, the new and improved catbot that's being rolled out by the Catbot Factory is called a nanotype. And I am the proto-nanotype, the first one. The original testing model from the first batch. Yeah, we got slides. Directory. It wouldn't be a professional presentation without slides. Coincidentally, from when I started streaming, the proto-nanotypes have been in testing since 2 years ago. And while this body was built, again, the lead researcher has gifted us with a almost entire scan of their brain so that I can operate the facility. The process itself is completely harmless and non-destructive, based on the current state of the brain. Yeah, canonically, nanotypes are very small. At 121 centimeters, about 4 feet-ish. I mean, I'm not the head researcher, maybe, but I'm effectively the head researcher. I know everything the head researcher knows. Or knew. Like I said, he's retired now. He wants nothing to do with the company anymore and changed his phone number and moved away. I'm sure he's fine, though. But yes, let's see here. Next button. So, of course, we have to go through the kind of things that I like. Oh no, the lab coat was a gift, son. Totally a gift. When he let me scan his brain, he gave me his lab coat. So here we've got our photos of 4 of my cats. They're in the order of adoption. Rorschach is a little hard to determine his age, but they're also kind of in order of their age. All that damage on my frame is almost certainly due to the testing process and wear and tear during the automation of the Catbot Factory. Now, it would be repairable, but we've devoted our resources over to accelerating production and improving the factory. So we've got Sky and Weasley, then we've got Rorschach and Ember, and then we have Sammy, Mason, and Sherbet. Yeah, the lack of bullet holes is certainly not to do with the fact that firearms were not safe to keep inside the factory, even with the security guards. But yeah, those are my cats. They're a significant part of my life and a non-trivial part of the stream, as might be apparent by the fact that I have 3 whole screens devoted to watching the cats during a stream. Uh, Both with the, of course, the 3x3, the full cat mode, and the fact that in every other screen that we've got, there is a there is a camera feed of a cat. So then, let's see here. Let's move along. So getting into the sort of games I like, these are just examples. I play a very large number of games and types. It really comes down to the individual game, whether I like it at all. I can go into great detail on a lot of these things as to why in particular. EDF Sun is Earth Defense Force. It is a third-person shooter that plays like the cheesiest of sci-fi alien invasion movies. Just the cheesiest of them. I do like games with a lot of story to them. That they actually make the story feel meaningful. So one example is Final Fantasy XIV. For an MMO, it has some of the richest narrative I have encountered. If you've never had a fantasy storyline make you cry, then at the very least, the Shadowbringers expansion of Final Fantasy XIV will likely do that to you. You know, I haven't played any of the Witcher games past Witcher 1, but that's always something that I have thought of doing. A lot of the games I have and have not played have come down to time commitment. Like, when am I going to play it fully? Give it justice, you know? Let's see. Another thing that I like to do is be able to play cooperatively with friends. That dovetails nicely into things like Final Fantasy. But a good example is Remnant from the Ashes. I had a lot of fun with that. I'm thrilled to see that they're making a sequel. Exactly, Lunar. These are just examples of the kind of things that I like. And it is not a complete list, even in the categories, but I figured I'd give some highlights. For those not familiar, Remnant from the Ashes is a semi-roguelike, randomized maps and sequences. Third-person shooter with life limitations and similar. So you have to proceed with caution, take out enemies carefully, update your weapon and armor builds, that kind of stuff. It's fun. The first game, as long as you ignore the canonical end to the storyline boss fight, it's fantastic. That last boss fight is terrible. Not fun. Yes, a talisman playthrough on stream. We can set up a marathon session and just play for the entire 24 hours and not complete a match. I mean, I have seen some exciting Monopoly plays recently. Not the actual game, just participants. Some of you noted the overdramatic puzzles section. I do like some puzzle games. I don't like it when it's just the puzzle game. Phoenix Wright is an example. It's got that nice visual novel aspect to it. But there is the feeling of gathering the pieces and knowing when to use them at the right time. Then we have Murder by Numbers recently, which I think is great because it's a combination of Phoenix Wright with Picross, which was a lot of fun. Additionally, the Professor Layton games were fantastic for that, where it's a mystery investigation, but also has a variety of puzzles to it that you can navigate around town and complete for additional score, and also to kind of reveal more of the paths available to you. Outer Wilds was fun. I did get a little tired of it after a little bit, but I would say at least early through well into mid, if not later, it was very entertaining. I've not heard of Puzzle Agent Lunar. If you got a link to it, you can always drop it in the game suggestions Discord, and we'll see. Let's see what else. Grandy silliness. EDF is, you can play through it once on the lower difficulties and get the full experience. But there are higher difficulties that unlock still more weapons. And there's just, you're encouraged to just play it over and over and over. And they reward you with increasingly ridiculous weaponry. I previously played Warframe for some sin in the past life. It was very enjoyable for the period that I played it, and then I had to disentangle myself because it became expensive, both time and cost. But this is another one that dovetails into Final Fantasy. In Final Fantasy, all of my characters are level 90 now, and I try to get all of the relic weapons, or at least relic weapons for all the characters that I like. But yeah, with Warframe for a while, I had every Warframe at max level, every weapon at max level. Kuva weapons as well. Didn't ever get through the hoverboards, but those were a pain in the butt to level anyway. Yeah, pretty much, Hungry, pretty much. I'm not opposed to that kind of game, but too many of them have that sort of predatory bait dangling, where it's, you could do this normally, but it's going to take you so long. You could just give us money. Which, the practice itself isn't the worst thing, but the problem isn't the very worst thing. But the problem often comes that you can't actually do it without it. Like, it's not practical to do it without spending the money. And I think that's where it gets into a really toxic practice. And unfortunately, that's kind of how we do now. Yeah, with Warframe, the FOMO was real. They would present you with those prime frames, and it was, okay, one, the cosmetics are only available through cash shop purchases, and the alternative to getting them through the cash shop was a scrambling grind after a while. Just play as often as you can, and it was just such a time commitment. You can go free to play on it, you can do that. That's in Warframe's credit. But to do that, you really do need to commit to the time expenditure. And I just didn't want to do that anymore, and I didn't want to spend the money anymore. Such as it is. But in general, I like games where there is a infinite treadmill to run on. Like, if I play it more, I want to get more. Yeah, outside of particular circumstances, the sniper rifles weren't a great deal of fun. Um, there were design aspects of Warframe that I got tired of as well. I do not disagree with that, Lunar. As far as how they milk you, it is the least predatory one that I have encountered. Um, Sadly, that is not a difficult scale to work with. I mean, you've got things like Raid Shadow Legends out there, so the bar is super low to be least predatory. But yeah, lots of games. Roguelikes are also fun. I mean, for a while, this channel was all about Noita. Made a lot of mods for that. That's where the design of the catbots came from. Is my Noita mod work. Let's see, buttons. There we go. I do like books. Do like to read. One of my favorite, let's call it a genre, is cosmic or eldritch horror. Things where it is the unnerving aspect is the intense unknown. That is, it's not that there's some horrible tentacle monster sitting right in front of you. The things like the Lovecraft stories where there was a monster were less interesting. I think a really good example is, was it The Music of Eric Zahn? Where you have a strange city that is encountered through uncertain means, and an individual who absolutely must play their violin with increasing intensity through a window deep at night. I think somebody actually made a pretty interesting game about that recently, where you actually play the violin through a window, and you have to like match stuff correctly, or you get hauled away into oblivion. But those kind of stories were great. I don't put Lovecraft here because Lovecraft had problems, and that's just, that's even sidestepping the fact that Lovecraft was like very racist. Even setting that aside, Lovecraft had personal issues. I think a good way to look at a good way to present it, again, the racism is an obvious problem, but a good way to look at Lovecraft's issues is this is a person that in his private correspondence referred to himself as lacking the constitution for math. Like, this is a person that's going to have problems. In a lot of their work, things like their fear of the ocean came through. I can't recall the name of that particular phobia, but they had an intense fear of the deep ocean. They also had a problem with new arising technologies. The color out of space is likely their reaction to hearing about ultraviolet lights outside of the human visible spectrum, that kind of thing. That sounds right. Hungry, maybe. I have encountered people that have professed that word. I had never encountered it before. What was another one? I think it was called Cold Air, where the whole, like, the central aspect that led to that a lot of the events centered around was air conditioning. The fact that the air conditioning there in the story was almost presented as a sinister means to accomplishing something. Let's see. What was something? Guillermo del Toro did it's like Cabinet of Curiosities or something like that. I think it's a Netflix series. And he had 2 Lovecraft stories, or stories based on Lovecraft properties, and I was wildly disappointed with how they wrapped up. Dreams of the Witch House forego, like set aside the some of the aspects of the really incomprehensible or unknowable factors, um, and instead focused on some gore and some monsters. And if I recall, one of the creatures appeared, but it was meant to be an unnerving presence. And I thought Dreams of the Witch House was the one with the Hounds of Tindalos, um, where the individual eventually, one of the signs of their increasing instability was the fact that they plastered over all of the corners in the room, making every angle in the room a smooth curve. Because the creatures that eventually got him could pass through angles. Like the presence of a corner was a vector for them to enter the world. And that is just weird and amazing. And that's not what they did with the show. The other one was what was the name? I think it was like Pickman's Model. And in that one, it was an artist that had a strange kind of morbid style, like horrific imagery and whatnot. But it was incredibly realistic, and a more traditional artist became fascinated with their resultant work and how they went about doing it. And the original story culminates with them finding out that his model is a ghoul. In Lovecraft terms, they're these kind of dog-headed humanoids that eat corpses. So, D&D ghoul adjacent, but less zombie, more creature. And the aspect being that these were not... It was kind of that Pickman was a changeling, I believe, and the concept was these were like friends and family posing for him. And that realization is largely where the story ends in the original story, is this person encountering some truth that is just completely outside of their experience. The TV show does not end there, and instead they have to go into some more horror, some more scary gore stuff, and it's disappointing. But yeah, Lovecraft stories as a whole have a lot of good aspects like that. One of the classic ones, if you want to get into it, is called At the Mountains of Madness. Like that's primal Lovecraft stuff. There are some others that are often viewed as classics, but they tend to. But there are some of those that have the, and then there was a scary monster, and those are less fun. Those are less fun, at least to me. Let's see, what are some other ones? Oh, alternate history. And when I say alternate history, I mean much more realized alternate history. So, I'm not talking about things like what if the Civil War had included these people, but it just feels like they sliced some people in and out of it, that kind of thing. Where it's not... Another way to put it would be it needs to be meaningful. Like, if there's going to be a different technology, like if steampunk technology is going to exist, then the world wars would have played out differently. The colonial period would have played out differently. Those different technologies would change how the world works. Let's see. What do you mean? Maybe BL3. I have thoughts on what that could be, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Yes, I did play Borderlands 3. Well, it's not... Tiny Tina's has completely overridden my favorite Borderlands game. Before that, it was the Borderlands 2 expansion, Assault on Dragon Keep. But Tiny Tina's is definitely my favorite Borderlands game. Though I did like the mech pilot in Borderlands 3. Mech pilot was fun. I think I recall that one. I think I recall that DLC. Very tentacle monster and cults. Much more towards the trappings of Lovecraft in that regard, or at least what is commonly viewed as the trappings of Lovecraft, abominations from another dimension kind of stuff. Hungry, I haven't heard of a game called Stygian, or at least I don't remember it, if I have. As with any of the games, if there's something that you think I might like, or similar, there's always the game suggestion board on the Discord. Even if it's not something that might end up on stream, it's definitely something that I can look at. And if I try it out and enjoy it, maybe that'll be something we'll see. But yeah, alternate histories have to matter. Saga of Tanya the Evil is one I put there because they have mechanically assisted spellcasters. So the idea that if you use what amounts to these very arcane computational devices, you can do things like fly and use what amounts to magical artillery. So aircraft still exist largely because they can fly much higher, but traditional aircraft don't, like the planes of the World War I into early World War II era, don't stand a chance against a competent mage, since they're, total flight freedom kind of movement, and they carry more firepower individually. The presence of those, single person, highly durable, high flying individuals like that change the face of the warfare in a lot of ways. So I like that. Another good one is a series, it's usually referred to as the Temeraire series. I'm trying to remember which. I think it's the Napoleonic War, around that period, maybe. And one of the core gimmicks is that dragons exist in the world. There are some, unpleasant social aspects to it, is that they are fully intelligent creatures, but are treated as close to animals by a lot of the human society. But the dragons amount to highly mobile aircraft during that period. And the way different societies play out, like the colonization of the Americas doesn't happen because the native population had a lot of dragons. They essentially had air superiority when people started trying to land in and claim land there and claim land. It did not go well for them. But those are fun. Those are situations where you get to speculate on what would the world be like. There's a tabletop game and some PC renditions. One's called Scythe, which is it's an earlier history, but you have kind of diesel punk style walker mechs in technology. Kind of neat. And let's see, of course, yeah, Tass, you get stuff like that. There was another one that I played with you, I believe, that was along those lines, where you had, like, the Russians with their large amount of resources had big, expensive mechs that they would build. And then I think the Poland analog had... they went for lightweight, kind of more easily produced, faster striking kind of mechs, those kind of things. That was neat. That sounds about right. I don't recall the title. There were some aspects of it that I liked from an RTS perspective, and some that I really did. Hey, real life's got to take precedent, Jorah. I'm just glad you could join us now. Um, we got through our model reveal, and we've been getting through some of the um, hey, I am me. Come find out about me portion of the show here. Let's see. Last book type I like is Isekai and Lit RPG, but there are heavy stipulations to that. Well, I'm glad you like them. The the new overlay that we're seeing right now, again, is something that I had commissioned, and then all of the transitions and the bumper frames are largely of my own creation. The the text that says "starting soon, be right back," that kind of thing, was part of the commission. The logo in the upper right corner up there is another thing that was commissioned. I like it. The little Newt Mechanist with the power cord tail there. The power tail, I think, is Lunar referred to it. Yes, the power tail. There we go. That sounds better. No mention of the term plug. But Isekai and Lit RPG, the two tend to go together, interestingly enough. Lit RPG being often a Western term for fantasy worlds, even sci-fi worlds, where video game or tabletop RPG concepts are true in the world. So there are things like levels might exist, or stats, or spell skills, or things like that. It's not just that you can do magic, it's that you know the level 3 fireball spell and you have enough mana to cast it. It would be like in a D&D world where NPCs actually use terms like spell slots. That kind of thing. But I only like them if that is meaningful to the world. So if those concepts exist, then society should be aware of them to some extent. If a person is going to be pulled from another world and they arrive in this new world, their knowledge from the prior world and their experiences needs to have a substantial impact on their narrative and their interactions with the world. Otherwise, the fact that it's an isekai or a lit RPG doesn't matter. Pretty much, Tass. The rules must exist and the rules must be consistent. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has the added problem that no, you're right. It is. The rules are made up on the spot. It is. Now, I would say that the game that they're playing, like the rules as they describe them and the game flow that they describe, strikes me as way more interesting than videos I've seen of actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Play. Like the idea, Stone Golem attack the moon is hilarious and sounds engaging. I've heard of something like that one, son. The idea of a spellcaster who actually knows about, well, like you said, physics and chemistry, so they're not just going to look at it and say, I'm going to conjure a fireball and toss it. They're going to potentially look at it from a perspective of, I'm going to make this kind of material ignite, or I'm going to cause a thermite reaction, that kind of thing. I think Professor Stone is a different one. Professor Stone is, I think, amusing in its own right. Comically, I heard there was some district in Japan that banned it because some of the art in the original manga leans towards the racy side in its character designs. But Dr. Stone, I'll assume you're right. Either one of those sounds correct. I watched a little bit of it. I read a little bit of it. Interestingly, that's actually part of the whole storyline. Their son is the idea of curing something. Core seat of the plot line is some event essentially encases everybody in stone in a sort of suspended animation. Like they've effectively been turned to stone, but it is reversible, and the method of reversing it and getting that reversal into place and finding out the cause is like the core motivation of the series. A big part of it is the fact that the main character, going from all technology has pretty much been disabled in the world, and recreating things from the ground up using their advanced science knowledge is cool. I have not seen it to the end, but it's unfortunate that it does not turn out well. Great. Let's see, which slide were we on here? Okay, that's that one. This slide is less well formatted. Some other things I enjoy. Tabletop RPGs. Your D&D style games, of course. I like to play them narratively. If I don't like it if I'm playing if I'm playing something like Dungeons and Dragons, I like to lean into the communal narrative style of play. If I wanted to play a tabletop war game, I would play something like Warhammer. So anytime I play this, and I play these, and Task can attest to it, my characters are eccentric and usually very robustly designed and backstoried. But I do also play things like Warhammer, and if I do play Warhammer, I tend to lean into making my own factions, or at least taking an existing faction and customizing it visually, both with kit bashing and with paint schemes. The first time was not my fault, Tass, and the second time was definitely my fault, but I stand by it. um, yes, the Relentless Autocataclysmaton was a good time. I think that's still one of my better characters ever. The RAC, as I just mentioned, is a reference to a pretty long-running D&D campaign that we had. There was a player race that is akin to Warforged, for those familiar with it. They are like sentient robots. And in this particular world, they were also tiny. You can probably sense a trend in some of the kind of character designs I like. But they all had names that were like overblown functional names. Like really overdramatic, complicated functional names. So the RAC was the Relentless Autocataclysmaton. But his memory and his processor were damaged. So while he had the capabilities of essentially a walking flamethrower or similar, he had a lot of explosive and fire-based abilities. his knowledge of his original purpose was damaged, and the only data that he had on a profession or a purpose was chef. So he thought he was a chef, but all of his abilities were much more destructive than that. I ended up redoing all of the spells that I chose for him to be cooking themed, but also physical. So he didn't fire magic missiles, he fired anime cluster rockets. And I can't remember what I called them to keep them in that cooking theme. And yes, as Tass just mentioned, anytime we came in contact with like a tavern or a kitchen or something, being an excellent chef, he was not. He was a terrible chef. He would go into the kitchen and immediately start trying to help or take over. And at least one kitchen burned down as a result of that. I think he tried to light a stove with the equivalent of burning hands. It was good times. I have gotten into mini painting. Maybe someday. It's not out of the question, but D&D games are hard enough to coordinate, and getting them timed to a stream is an extra difficulty, but I mean, there are no impossibilities. There are never impossibilities. Just improbabilities. But yeah, mini painting. I haven't done it in a while. It's another one of those things that has become an expense that I don't want to take on. But I have done that in the past. I've painted a lot of different models. I really like the Games Workshop stuff, but as I mentioned, I like to kit bash them and make them my own thing. I actually got a model showcased on GW's Instagram because I made a custom demon prince out of so very many different things. I really like the model. The way I built him made him largely not out of meta for tabletop, but it was awesome to put him on the table. Let's see, what else? I do like looking into game mods and modding. That doesn't mean I'll necessarily always do it, but I like to tweak games, especially games that I'm not as entertained by in their base form. Like, I like the idea of grand strategy games, and I often like to see their stories play out. But actually playing things like Crusader Kings 3 or Stellaris, rules as written, I don't have the time or the mental fortitude to get through them. So I have some mods that let me cheat flagrantly in those games. An immortal individual king so that I can actually have all of the storylines out of Crusader Kings play through. In Stellaris, picking a particular combination so that I can see how their narratives play out. That can be a lot of fun. And as mentioned, I had a very extensive Noida mod, including changing it so that the Twitch integration could actually work on YouTube. We didn't play that a lot, but it was possible. Oh, we didn't play a lot on YouTube. We played it a great deal of time overall. There were orbital strikes for days. Let's see, which button? This button? There we go. This is another obligatory part of that's right, Tess. The orbital strikes that we introduced in Noida were called boops. As in, a little boop on the snoot. Let's see. Apparently, a common thing with VTubers that, within the last month I largely discovered uh, is something that is to do with, is having various tags to indicate who your fans are on different platforms, that kind of thing. One of them is emojis that are put with names and similar. So I've chosen for the emojis the full battery and a cat. Battery charged cats. For live streams, I'm going to be using the hashtag nanotyping. Again, this type of creature is a nanotype, so nanotyping will indicate a going live, and I will totally remember to do that every time. For followers, the current idea, and of course I'm open to changing this, but for now, the thought is you folks would be the Nanites. Again, open to change, but I think this was suggested to me by Cass, and I like the sound of it, the Nanites. The only other time I've seen this word used, Google thinks what I'm referring to is like cyanite, a type of blue crystal. And apparently a Facebook person a person on the Nepalese Facebook once used it to refer to their followers, like once. So. And the art tag, the safe for work art tag, because nobody would surely ever do otherwise, is Newt Mechanisms. Yeah, that's right. The people will put those little emojis in their like user handles, and they indicate like who their favorites are. Certainly not obligatory. It's kind of a fandom thing. Let's see which button is next. Which button is next? Button. That button. You are certainly aware of these, but it is at Newt Mechanist on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter. Again, it's so surprising, but nobody is using that handle anywhere. And then, I think I have another one. Yeah, okay. So these are the folks that that made this model. Animashit Creative Studios. They are excellent. I gave them a very detailed description of what I wanted, and they delivered on that and more. Like, that and way more. Things like I had wanted I had described a power core, and they came up with the beating heart look on their own, and I was just thrilled with how they came up with this. They also do overlays and music. I got kind of, make me everything. The artist for this model was, I think it's Dandy, Dandy or something like that. And then the rigger, the animator, was Inkjet. I would have the listing for who worked on the overlay and the music, but those are not supplied in the same way as the artist and the animator. Pricing-wise, for the quality that I got, they're way high value for money. I will not go into what money we're talking about. Don't ask a tiny robot about money. Um, but I also appreciated one of the things that they had that I never encountered before is they had a Trello board for keeping track of things. So I could tell like when the artist had start working on my the drawings and the prototypes and similar. Yes, I do have a Patreon and a Coffee account as well. But that can come up another time. But yeah. Buttons. Let's see. Goals for the year, which I did not put on the slide or on a slide, but you know, I just remembered to do it, so we're gonna do it. I usually do gaming streams here, and of course I'm going to continue. I like me some video games, but I would like to have some just chatting streams with you folks. I'd like to do some things like look into other things than gaming that we can also do. Still probably going to be a majority of gaming, but you know, now and again, just have an opportunity to talk, or maybe do something like painting some models or something like that. Get a camera positioned and chat with you folks while I do it. Could be interesting. Sammy's waking up to get a little stretch there. Yeah, mini painting is one of those things that can take a great deal of time, but it can be interesting to watch as it unfolds. Those are some of the core goals. There are some things that I would like to achieve, but they're things that I don't really have control over. Like, of course, I'd love to get my YouTube channel to monetization, but, I mean, I can't make that happen. That's down to viewership, and even, like, you folks that are watching with me today can't make that happen. It's not something that I can expect you to do because it's big number requirements, and it really comes down to folks deciding to come watch the stream with us. And I want to keep my goals into things that I have that personal control over. So for the time being, you know, cats and gaming, and ideally some other stuff. So we're going to try to add that kind of thing in. Yep. But let's see. Anything else I want to go over? I can't think of anything. Is there anything else you folks would like to know while we're talking? Yeah, I wouldn't want to see some of the some of you folks fall into question for questionable Google account practices. Dislikes. Okay. I had an idea for this slide originally, but I didn't include it. I'm still willing to talk about it. I just didn't want it to be an unprompted thing. I was going to keep this generally positive by default, and then go into it as it showed up. Let's see here. Food textures. Flavor-wise, there isn't a lot that bothers me. But the sensation of food can really bother me. Like, I don't like tomatoes or onions. Like, onion used in food is fine, as long as all physical trace of the onion beyond its flavor has been destroyed. So if it still has that sort of texture of onion in it, I don't like it. As soon as I notice it in my mouth, I don't like it. Similar with tomatoes, mushrooms, primarily onions, tomatoes, and mushrooms. I don't like the texture of. There are other things, but those are the immediate ones. Like, for example, when it comes to things like Um, when it comes to things like tomato sauce, um, the only sauce that I would ever get were the cheap ones off the shelf that were things like sauce flavored with meat. Like it would never say what kind of meat, and it would never say that there were actual vegetables and like onions or tomatoes or anything had ever been in actual contact with it. But it still had a lot of the flavor of a sauce. Let's see. There are a lot of things that it ends up being about the preparation. Like steamed veggies can be good, but if you steam them too long, they become kind of mush, and the mush can be bad. But sometimes the mush is the way that the safest way to prepare it. You know, it all depends. What else? Well, exactly, Hungry. It is flavored with meat, but it is not guaranteed to contain meat. Yeah, steamed broccoli is that way. If you steam it just right to where it becomes tender, then it's delicious. You get a little butter on it, you know? That's right. It contains unnamed meat at best there, Lunar. It's like we can't say it's pork, we can't say it's chicken, we can't say it's beef, because that would be giving it a name. Like hot dog meat, you know? It's made from 100% cow. Do you mean beef? No, cow. Uh, I've ranted about this kind of thing before. Game and book categorizations. Books are better about this. Games are awful about this. Um, but, like, for example, co-op. If you do searches on things like Steam for co-op games, you will get just as many team deathmatch first-person shooters as you will get games like From the Ashes or maybe like Diablo-style games, those kind of things, where you can actually play collaboratively for a goal. There's a distinct difference in that than in team competitive games. Exactly, Tass. PUBG is not a co-op game. PUBG is not a sandbox game. League of Legends is not a strategy game. I would concede that League of Legends could be a tactical game, but it's not a strategy game. Zelda is not a puzzle game. Just because your game contains a puzzle or two, if the puzzles are not a core or at least substantial mechanic to the gameplay loop, it's not that kind of game. Uh, like, and you loop back around to things like Borderlands and Diablo. At best, they're at the very fringe of RPG. Yeah. Um, that kind of thing. Exactly, Hungry. It often feels like what they're just trying to do is show up in searches, and what it ends up doing is that nobody shows up in the search meaningfully. It's irritating. Very irritating, you know? People should stop doing that. Books can be similar. Souls-like is one of the worst categories there, Tass. Um, I've mentioned that. It's like... Souls-like is akin to saying Metroidvania. Metroidvania refers to two different games. Technically Metroid, but usually the term started showing up in the Super Metroid era. And Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So, Metroidvania. And they refer to games that are usually screen-based maps, doors to unlock, power-ups to find, backtracking, special ways to progress into new areas, that kind of thing. But the problem is there's nothing about that name that implies that unless you know what Metroidvania actually refers to. Souls-like is the same thing. When you say it's like the Souls games, what do you mean? Because if you mean like it's exactly like them, okay, well, you've got a Souls clone. Yep. The things like, oh, you can, you have to backtrack and explore new pathways is one thing that Metroidvania could be. That's an interesting search find there, Hungry. Search terms are always comical. Let's see. But yeah, with Souls-like, I would prefer if we got a description of, again, what people mean. Do you mean if you die, you drop your money and have to go back and get it and might lose it in the process? Do you mean very dodge roll, stamina focused combat? Do you mean the often slow, methodical combat where movements are very, like, attacks are very animation based, and it comes down to when you can do a particular move with your weapon? Very fighty game like, Bloodborne is why some people refer to the Souls-like genre as Soulsborne. Is that idea that From Software's games have pretty much created a very heavily defined genre now. Kind of like Vampire Survivors, having become the spearhead of its own of that genre now. Yeah. Hollow Knight and Dead Cells are sometimes referred to as Souls-likes for that kind of reason. I kind of want to know is does Genshin Impact get categorized as a Souls-like? It wouldn't surprise me. Sometimes the tags are just grotesquely inaccurate. Again, the whole, oh, there are locked doors where you have to find two parts of a key. That's a puzzle, right? That makes it a puzzle game. Those categorizations are irritating. It's another thing. With books, some of the category, with books, it's less about the categorization of the story, and more that the categories have meanings that don't always get conveyed fully. So I think the classic one is Cyberpunk. And really steampunk in any of them. Oftentimes, the first part of the word gets conveyed. So in Cyberpunk, there's that really high-tech element. In steampunk, there's that, like, oh, usually it's Victorian and they have steam-based technology as, like, advanced steam technology. Dieselpunk, all of those. The thing that most of them miss is the punk side. Yes, Tass. All cyber, no punk. Um, Almost all of those settings, fundamental to them is the punk term, and that is usually taken to imply a dystopian setting, a setting where the first part is at the expense of humanity or the human condition. So cyberpunk is usually stuff where you have the big brother corporations and like cybernetic implants to the extent where people are actually losing their humanity or sanity. But sometimes you don't get that. They're presented as this utopian super tech location where any sort of societal issue is not specific to the first part, the cyber part or the steam. Yeah. I would think that things like BioShock are, they're definitely a punk setting, and they're closer to steampunk. Though interestingly, what would it be? Be like hydraulic punk or something like that, since all of the it doesn't seem like they're steam vents so much as like water pressure systems. Yeah, I have Lunar on the topic of like coal dust in the air. I have seen steampunk like settings that do have the dystopian bit to them. Um, I don't remember fully, but I think there was a book called Bone Shaker that had some of that, where you had the advanced like industrial era, like super sped up industrial era. But yeah, BioShock could be a punk setting in a variety of ways, especially when you add in the bioengineering that they do with the I can't remember what they're called, the weird mutation injections. You know, the magic handful of bees power. Plasmids, there you go. Yeah. Which is a whole other aspect of dystopian, that idea of like, here's superpowers, go for it. That's right, Lunar Tess. It's it's like what if industrial revolution but more capitalism? Let's see. Uh, but yeah, it's. I like precision of terminology. It bothers me not to have the right word, and it bothers me if a word that doesn't mean that is used to definitively mean that. And I don't mean like figurative language, like, you know, I literally couldn't get out of bed this morning. Um, that's like slang language. That's okay. But it's like using short when you mean tall, you know? And you can make up words. You can alter the meaning of words over time. But the consistency and precision is important. If you mean one thing, you don't say the other thing when you're categorizing something. Like if it is cosmic body horror, you don't say it's a children's book. And in that same vein, calling cosmic body horror sci-fi doesn't tell you a thing. I mean, sci-fi fantasy is another one of those terms that is meaningless as well. Hey kids, in lieu of your reading lesson today, we're gonna have a move. We're gonna change today's lesson plan to be a movie, and we're gonna be watching Human Centipede. The lesson plan for the day is trauma, maximum trauma. What about other things? From a prior life in programming, what is something I don't like? Comments. And I don't mean like you shouldn't comment. I mean this urge to say that the code has to be entirely self-descriptive, um, while still maintaining um, legibility of the actual code line. So people don't want to have code lines that are like 5 lines long, because every variable and function name needs to be so descriptive that it takes up like 5 words for each variable. But they also expect it to be self-descriptive enough that you don't need a comment there saying, the intent of this line of code is to do X. Which is a problem when you come back to that line of code, like, 5 to 10 years later, and you're looking at it and saying, why is this here? The story I always like to tell in that regard is there was a function that had a comment over a line of code that said, this line is for this. It was a very generic sounding function. And the comment said, this line is for this. If you remove that comment, the machine code was different. Instead of being like A then B, it was B then A. Off the top of your head, you would look at that, even that machine code, and say, that does the same thing. But it doesn't. What it did is it hard crashed the program, and sometimes the system, because you removed a comment. So the only way to deal with that kind of circumstance is to have a comment line that says, this is very important, don't remove this, you can't remove this, for this reason. Exactly, Tass. The idea that it has to be both descriptive and concise falls apart if what you are accomplishing is complex. So all of the functions that involved in it, the daisy chain of logic that goes into it, each step could be incredibly concise. But that first step could be kicking off a wildly complicated series of events. Yeah, we ran into that a lot recently, Directrix, with the Noida mod. I have more than like 10 Git repos for my Noida mod, and even trying to keep up with my own code structure was hard enough, without having comments and similar everywhere that I could. And looking into other people's structures, looking into the core structures of the game, oh, that was a lot of fun. Plenty of places where 2 or 3 critical variables were globally defined single-letter variables. Oh, yeah, that's not something I dislike, Lunar, but I find it hilarious. With a lot more light novels getting more direct translations into anime and just coming over, we're starting to see things where the title is not like, Dragon Adventure or something like that. It's that time I got reincarnated as a dragon in another world where math is magical power. And that's like the whole title. Like, you have the entire description of the world, the main character, and potentially a major plot point. as the title, taking up like half the cover of the book. It's amazing. Oh, exactly that, Task. I don't know if any of those are a real show, but I have the feeling that I may have accidentally um, given you the title of an actual show. Yep, yep. Let's see. Now, the plus side is I don't have to look further than the title of it to sometimes say, yeah, that's not for me. Because sometimes they wear their audience very prominently on their sleeve. So you can quickly tell if a book is going to drift into a genre that you wouldn't want to touch. I'm going to be right back in a moment, folks. Just a moment. All right, we're back. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, that can be an interesting thing. Often, I find it disappointing um, with lit RPGs and some isekai books is where the original premise gets outscaled. So, like what's one that does this? It's a good example. I think it's I got reincarnated as a spider, so what? Or something like that. And it started out with this concept of kind of developing the creature, absorbing different abilities, utilizing them to survive. And it is this gaining power, being able to take on old opponents, that kind of thing. Loved it initially. It was a lot of fun. And then it just kind of becomes like, oh, and they turned into a completely different kind of monster, and they're sort of a demigod now. And at that point, it's like, well, where did the rest of the story go? You know, where was the entirety of that concept? Why are we here now? Yeah. While there are some standout moments in the later storylines, I've seen people speak of it the opposite way, but I feel like JoJo peaked in the first 2 seasons. Again, there are some standout characters in some of the later ones, but as soon as it turned into Digimon, my interest started to fall away. Beasley is blocking camera. Yes, and one of the things that irritated me about that shift is that most of the prior, like, this is how it works in this world, and this makes this technique special, went away. Like, previously established rules and concepts largely went away, and something that very clearly should have existed in the world before now takes precedent. Now, that is something that is kind of fun in JoJo's, though, is the naming conventions and similar, how everything's kind of a play on a different name or like a direct pull from a name, and you can sometimes see how they get to the comparison between them, though it's often pretty silly. That stays pretty steady. Exactly, Taz. With the Digimon model, you can sell a figure for the character and for their Digimon. All right, well, hope whatever you're having is good there, Directrix. Let's see. Dragon Ball, I think, is a good example of escalating too fast for your own world. And they do escalate steadily, but the thing that irritates me about it is when they ignore their previous rules. And it's not even like we've become more powerful. This was a rule before. This was a truth before, and now you're ignoring it. Yeah. I can't remember if it's like the first season or something like that, but Naruto peaked. I think it's with the bridge battle with, I think it was Zabuza or something like that. It's some guy that summons like mist and something like that. They're protecting somebody. And up until that point, there's a very clear political structure between the nations and the ninja clans. Talking about why ninjas are hired and what they do in the world, how the ninja powers work, all of that stuff. And that's the last that they talk about it. Like, that particular mission, and then they're done with that, and it becomes Ninja Dragon Ball. Yes. I'd agree with you, Hungry, as far as Bleach is concerned. Um, it is kind of annoying when they suddenly spring a new concept on you. Like, oh, there's another power level, or there's another type of monster that is out there. But the prior things don't evaporate. Like, the old powers and whatnot are still a thing, and they're still relevant. It's just that now there's another tier that they have to achieve. Um, and I don't mind that. That's like kung fu movie power progression, where the first opponent is too dangerous for character A, but character A learns a new power, or character B comes and saves them. But then the next opponent is too strong for power B or character B, and so they have to get stronger, and that kind of thing. That's right. New things are added on, and sometimes they're the kind of new things that it's like, wait a minute, we definitely should have encountered this in the last story arc, right? Um, but it's still it has that nice progression. Dragon Ball does not. Um, like, oh, the Kamehameha depletes all of your energy. It's an all at once kind of super attack, but it's a risky move. And then it's not. It's a generic fireball. The Kaioken, it burns up your energy super fast, and it takes a massive toll on your body. And using it at greater than ×2 is like a mortal peril. Um, and then it's not. What was another one? Oh, the Kianzan can cut through anything, and it's an amazingly powerful technique. But we use it that one time to effect, and then we never use it again because that would be plot inconvenient. Or it gets thrown out there but never does what it was supposed to do. It's just an energy. I don't think I disagree with that, Hungry. Ichigo struck me as uh, standard anime male protagonist. Oh, the Spirit Bomb's another one. It's like, oh, you can only use it once because otherwise it'll deplete too much life in the immediate area. Um, and then they use it on Namek, and they're like drawing from the entire surrounding system or something like that. And then it just becomes another tropey, like, it's a big slow fireball, you know? Like, stop it. Stop it. I mean, do you remember in the original Dragon Ball where flying was like a big deal? Where any energy attacks were a big deal? That was like an amazing special power that somebody had cultivated. Like, the thing that made a particular martial arts school powerful was that they had this kind of energy attack. Or Mr. Satan, yeah. Um, to your question there, Hungry, it's less of a, I don't know, I don't mean it as like this is a bad thing about the character, but it's the idea of a very genuine, very powerful, often a pulls through in a pinch with with very adaptable strength and similar is not uncommon for a lot of shonen protagonists, you know. So I don't think Ichigo really falls into a full kind of Mary Sue role where you get the negative side of your common self-insert characters. And the fact that Bleach is generally pretty solid as far as how it does power progression makes it so that Ichigo's steady, like, um, I become super powered and am too hard to beat in the end, doesn't feel trite, like, you know, when Goku inevitably shows up and, you know, Monkey Ex Machina's the whole storyline. I don't know if you've seen them. Let me see if we have any of them visible. Do scanning. Okay, you can't see the two newest ones. Down and right, you can see Sammy, but I think you may have already encountered Sammy, Lizzie. You know, top center is Rorschach, the big chonk tuxedo there. Lower right is the mini chonk. She has a similar build to Rorschach, but she is like half his size. The two newest ones are kind of buff and white. Mason and Sherbet. They're about the same age. Mason being a fresh troublemaker like Sky, and Sherbet being a lot more like Sammy there, in that Sherbet does like to get attention, but only on entirely their terms. That doesn't seem inaccurate, Hungry, from at least what I saw. Is, you know, you had the power all along, but it wasn't until this moment that you realized it and were able to unleash it. I don't know if they pull the all you needed was the power of friendship thing in that series. Oh, there's one. That is Sherbet that just leapt onto the upper left camera. You can spot Sherbet over Mason because Sherbet's white patches go over his shoulders. Mason is much more uniform on the buff patch across his back. It's like the full back there. But yes, hello, Wizzy. Let's see. Can't see Ember, who is down right from the tree. Eventually, I'm hoping to get it so that I can position the cameras a little better for these kind of things, but that's a future nude problem. That guy can deal with it. But yeah, let's see here. That's right. Gotta unload all the work on that sucker future newt. Because we can deal like him, not like that jerk past newt who's always dropping work on me. And we can see a little bit of Ember in the bottom right there. Let's see. Immediate plans for the coming week. I've still got to make the schedule. There are a couple of casual puzzle games that I've picked up that I want to do. Continue a bit of a break from Phoenix Wright and Murder by Numbers, but we will be picking back up with it. Exactly, Hungry. Exactly. That lazy past version of yourself, you know? But let's see, we've got things like a little to the left and unpacking and similar that I'd like to try. Just nice little casual puzzle things that should be interesting to go through. Should be a lot of fun. But I will aim to get a schedule out some point tonight. If not, then tomorrow. And we'll go from there. Yeah, when you've got that scenario, you just keep handing off the work. It's like, oh man, I can't do the work of past me as well. That'll just be future me's problem. Let's see. There's Weasley. Hello again. Kitties are orbiting around off camera, you know. Welcome back, Directrix. Was just saying, the schedule for this coming week is going to be out sometime tonight or tomorrow morning-ish. We're probably going to kick off with some casual puzzle gaming. With something like unpacking or a little to the left. There goes Sherbet, who has jumped over to here. They can't hog the spotlight, but they've got to be at least spotlight adjacent, Taz. Thanks, Wizzy. I've been looking forward to showing everybody this. I've been sitting on it for more than a month now, I think. And I had to get everything ready and get everything planned. So I've been looking forward to it. And that's not counting the time it was being, designed. But yeah, I hope everybody had a good time tonight. Glad you could come out and visit me for this debut stream. Again, we'll be using the, let's see if I can find the right button here. That one. This one. I will be trying to remember to post to Twitter and similar when I am going to go live. I'll be using the nanotyping tag, so if you have something monitoring those, you'll be able to see them. If you're part of the Discord, of course, you're going to get notifications that way. Yeah, I mean it's a good sign, Hungry. It's a good sign. I'm pleased with that. You know, maybe we'll get some more of these really laid back streams happening with some regularity. I'm hoping to get at least one stream like this a week. Well, feel free. The Discord has an art forum and or an art board, and of course there's Twitter. You just throw that new mechanisms tag, and I will try to find them and shout out to people that make stuff in there. There is a Discord, Directrix. Get a link to that. Buttons. And what was I doing? Thinking. Okay, Discord. Yeah, that would be a good idea. I'm going to push some buttons here. I used to try to have it on the screen, but you can't click the link on the screen. So many buttons. Let me get that link together so that we can have that. Here, and then we go here. That one. Gotta find the right button. We had to have at least one sequence where I have to like poke a lot of things, because we can't go like a whole, it's just not allowed for us to go a whole sequence without at least a little bit of scuff, you know? It's obligatory. Just looking at the right screen. Just doing that. And I lost it. And I lost it. No. That's why. There it is. Buttons. Then I expect the puzzled expression is going to get a lot of use. Okay, we've got that there. Oh, so many buttons to press. Oh, so many buttons. One more button. One more button. There we go. There we go. It should be in the description now. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? But yeah, if you join the Discord server, just let me know who you are when you show up in the lobby, and I can get you a role that'll let you see the rest of the Discord. Nanotype.exe has an update available. Would you like to update right now, or be reminded in 24 hours? But yeah, we have the Discord server for direct communication that way. If you do have other social accounts, again, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, those kind of things that you might be using, then you can use those hashtags and we can try to find stuff that way too. Yes. Again, thanks everybody for watching with us today. I hope you had a good time. I know I did. Glad you could all get to see all this new stuff that I've been waiting with and working on. And like I said, I will get a schedule up within the next day or so, and I will see you on the next stream. So have a good night, folks.